Hello. I have to keep my voice down, not only because I'm losing it, but my wife is asleep. But I was asked to do videos showing the incremental growth from beginner to, finality, mastery of a move. Um, I wanted to start basic, uh, in particular with knife work. The reason for that is everybody in the world has this at their fingertips. We all use knives, especially in the West, to eat our food. So everybody has a sort of latent understanding of how to use a knife. Now, the best things you can buy are these Century ones, and the reason for that is you can see the edge is black. I'm just showing my arm. That's because when you run it across, you can end up with a black mark. I guess I didn't do it hard enough, but or the camera's too. Anyways, when you score this on someone, it lets them know that they've been tagged. Other people use markers, but the problem is it's not the weight. It's not the right weight distribution. Um, how I was first introduced with knives was with a water bottle. It was with a normal sort of American style water bottle, so not necessarily the shape. That's not really what's important. What this lets you do is first you fill it, and you're able to actually practice these techniques. You can then drop the water in this so the water can displace it, and it changes how the maneuverability happens. This is more for experimenting because when you graduate over into, actual functional ones for training, it's going to be in this kind of situation if you're in a TMA, non-Cordia. And there's many ways you can use this. This technique in particular, this sort of switch, I actually use it to develop my Hapkido live hands. Um, at my peak, I've been able to do 4, so let's see if I can do it. Not even 2. That's what you got to practice. But there's a lot of cool things you can do with these that are actually useful. There's a lot of flashy stuff. The fact of the matter is, because everybody has used this cutlery, they know how to cut meat. Um, no matter how good you are at knives, this is why it's not necessarily the best weapon to specialize in. Of course, we live in the modern age and there's firearms, and we live in more peaceful times when it's not war going on. So you shouldn't need to carry a firearm. But, you know, people do carry knives, and they don't always practice what they fully can do with it. So, whether they carry the knife, whether they use it at the dinner table, the fact of the matter is, if someone is holding a knife out at you like this, you have about a 30 to 50% chance of getting cut. I was taught if they reverse it, I want to make sure I reverse it right, like this, especially if it's shielded under the arms and they're not letting you actually see that they're carrying. This is particularly tricky because usually what gives away that there's a weapon is there's some sort of weight in the clothing. In the case of a knife that's up a sleeve, it's incredibly hard to tell. You really can only tell because they're not using the hand as much. So it's not even something most people are looking for. But when they're attacking you like this, it's like from 50 to 70%. And I was told that if they reverse it, Guga Muga, you are in for a guaranteed cut. I was even taught when practicing this stuff that you need to pick a limb to sacrifice. Now, there's better ways to manage this potentially, but what I wanted to get into with this video is how you sort of begin the drills, the rotation here, switch, how you flip the blade. It all comes down to the water bottle. And gradually you can begin to increase the dexterity. Because, when you have the water sort of bouncing around, that allows you to develop the nuance in the hand to biomechanically adjust for it. So likewise with this, now it becomes a lot easier. Boom, 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 boom. Likewise say you're in Koryu. Now, of course, this isn't how they use it whatsoever, but the fact of the matter is the same techniques apply. Unfortunately, right in front of the computer, so I only have about this much space at full arm's length, so I gotta actually tighten everything in. Now, what's the nice thing about this is a lot of these techniques and switches, and that's the other thing, is you gotta watch out for people who can actually, catch a blade. I've disarmed someone by grabbing the blade and wrenching it. It's not pleasant, not advisable, but eventually you graduate to actual knives. I have a cut. Damn the quality of this. And I'm sorry, I don't have any of my actual combat-oriented knives. Those are all in the United States, so I'm going off of what's in the house. So, this is actually not the worst blade. The reason for that is, one, it's not particularly sharp, so it can't do much damage unless it goes. But if you notice the tang, it's actually running. It's running down the whole blade. What you don't want is it to be like two separate hinges. What these hinges are actually doing is keeping the handle onto it, while the blade itself isn't entirely solid and compact. The parts of the blade are the pommel, the handle, the actual tang, and then the spine. And of course the point, and then there's delineation that goes beyond that. All of them are offensive or defensive depending on how you're using it. Now, the fact of the matter is, when you're using a knife, and this one's actually pretty light, so it's super easy to handle. When you're handling these things, you have to remember that no matter how good you get at handling them, the fact of the matter is, it is still lethal. It's like a gun. You don't point the gun at you don't point a gun at something unless you want to shoot it. Same thing with a knife. Don't pull a knife unless it's a life or death situation, and certainly don't point it at people because it's a threatening gesture just to begin with. And the minute you pull this out, it's an escalation, especially in the lethal force. And of course, this applies for even longer knives. Let's say like a Tanto. This one's so much longer, I have to really watch the screen. But the point is, you can still do the handling without cutting yourself. See? It just takes practice, that's all. Now, I'm actually curious if I can do the trick with this one without getting cut. I do this one perfect. We can do it. And then down the arm. Down the arm. No, see, that's the risk with that one. You can cut yourself with it. But anyways, there's a lot of cool moves you can do with this sort of stuff. Really, all you need is a reverse blade, and if it's reversed like this towards you, most people aren't going to want to tangle. First of all, you brought out a knife in the beginning. Most people don't want to fight. In the case of these sort of things, you need to practice with the specific implement, because take a look at the balance on this one. It's not even in the middle. It's actually more like in the hilt. Versus, say, Tanto. Let's see. Where are you going to go? You got that funky shape. So likewise, if we were to compare, looks like I have to put it here to actually balance it. If we were to compare it here, on the hilt, here would be, actually looks like it's about here, would be where the center balances. And all of these things are things that you can actually control with the blade so that you can, use it. So the goal of this isn't to show you a whole bunch of tricky knife moves. Believe me, I got a whole bunch. This is the wrap around the finger. You can do it around the finger. Sorry. I love when I switch from the heavy blades to the light ones. I screw them up. But really, the nice thing about this is it also lets you develop even better techniques. The actual technique that's happening here is just me opening my hand and doing that. And this is no different than the Hapkido live hand. So all of this kind of flows together. Now, I have to tell you, I've been in hundreds of sparring matches with people who are far more skilled in this practice. More Japanese martial arts, but also some Marines. When we were using these, everybody always got cut, no matter how good they were. It was extremely rare for a person, if the knife was already out and they were in that contact situation, that they wouldn't get a laceration somewhere. The goal is to not get it in a point that's going to actually kill you, because there are parts of the body that can tank. And the fact of the matter is, my teacher may be right. I had an experience where I rushed someone. We were friends in college, and we were part of the martial arts club and sparring. I wasn't aware that he had a knife on his holster, and I moved so quickly across the room, it spooked him, and he ended up doing a slashing cut across. Very clean, by the way. That would have lacerated me from hip to shoulder. That wasn't the intent. I had a Nerf sword, and I hold no ill will, and he only nicked my finger because I got out of the way at the last second. When you're working with live blades, you have to understand that even if you are the most skilled person in the world, dude can still just throw this at you. So I want to introduce you guys that you start with the water bottle, you build up with the training knives, you build up with the actual traditional weaponry, you learn how to actually use them in every single mode, because I would not want to get punched by this, especially at the temple. Then eventually you work up to sharps with guided teaching and being extremely careful. I would never want to hear any subscriber has moved past these. Get a real teacher if you want to learn how to use these, or join a circus, because oddly I know a fair amount of clowns in Cirque du Soleil who also do taekwondo, and their knife skills are would want to corner them in an alley. So thank you guys for joining, and I hope you found this entertaining.